Becky's thumb
What's
hovered over
wrong?
the
You look
send
really
button,
upset.
her vision blurred
I
by
don't know what to
tears
do. It's
and
okay, I'm
3
here for
glasses
you.
of wine. The text glowed on her screen like a bomb about to detonate. You're a condescending, micromanaging piece of shit who wouldn't know talent if it slapped you across your smug face. I quit. Choke on your quarterly reports. Marcus. Her best friend Keisha grabbed her wrist from across the couch. Becky, baby, don't do it. Sleep on this. But Becky was done sleeping on things. She pressed send, and the message disappeared into the void. For 3 seconds, she felt powerful. Then reality hit, and she threw her phone across the room. Oh God, what did I just do? The buzzing woke her at 6 a.m., dragging her from wine-soaked sleep into a pounding headache. 47 missed calls. 63 text messages. Her stomach dropped. She grabbed the phone with shaking hands, but the number wasn't Marcus. It was international. Country code 82. Cordell. She scrolled through the messages, confusion turning to horror. Ms. Washington, I believe we need to speak immediately. This is Jin-Woo Park. You've reached my personal number. Your message was quite passionate. We should discuss this. Her wine-soaked brain struggled to make sense of it. She pulled up her sent messages, and her blood turned to ice. The text had gone to a number ending in 7825. Marcus was saved as 7823. 2 digits. 2 tiny digits had sent her drunken resignation to a complete stranger in Korea. Before this gets worse, hit that subscribe button because you absolutely need to see how this disaster unfolds. Her phone rang. The same international number. She stared at it for 5 rings before answering. Hello. Her voice came out as a croak. Ms. Washington. The voice was male, accented, impossibly calm. I'm Jin-Woo Park. You sent me a rather interesting message at 2:47 a.m. your time. Becky wanted to die. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please just delete it and forget this ever happened. There was a pause, long enough that she wondered if he'd hung up. Then he spoke again, and something in his tone made her sit up straighter. I don't think I will delete it. Your message showed remarkable clarity about toxic management structures. Tell me, Ms. Washington, what do you do for Henderson Marketing? How do you know where she worked? She hadn't mentioned the company. How do you know that? Who are you? I know many things. I've spent the last 3 hours learning about you. Becky Washington, 28, Georgia State graduate, 83,000 in student debt, undervalued and underpaid. Your digital footprint is quite revealing. Fear spiked through her hangover. Are you stalking me? I'm hanging up. Don't. The word carried weight. I'm calling because I have a proposition. A job offer. $500,000 for 6 months of work. Becky laughed bitterly. Right? Look, this isn't funny. I'm dealing with enough without prank calls from Korea. Check your email, he said calmly. I've sent verification of my identity and a contract. Read it. Call me back within the hour. The offer expires after that. The line went dead. Her email pinged. The sender was park@parkglobalgroup.com. Subject, employment opportunity, confidential. She clicked. The email contained a contract, a link to Park Global Group's website, and identity verification documents. Jin-Woo Park was real, CEO and chairman of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate spanning Asia. His photo showed a man in his mid-30s, sharp-featured with dark eyes that seemed to look through the camera. The contract offered $500,000 for 6 months of strategic corporate consulting with a confidentiality clause 4 pages long. But let me back up and show you how Becky ended up here. 8 hours earlier in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. Becky had walked into that meeting with her head high. The Riverside Tech campaign was hers, 6 months of work that brought in $2 million in new business. This was her moment. Marcus Henderson smiled at her as she sat in the back. That should have been her warning. Marcus only smiled when he was about to screw someone over. The CEO settled in. Marcus, I understand you have impressive results to share about the Riverside Tech campaign. Becky's stomach clenched. Marcus stood, smoothing his cheap tie, and launched into a presentation of her work. Her research, her strategy, her concepts, all flowing from his mouth like he'd created them. He didn't mention her name once. Not once in 30 minutes. She sat invisible in the back while he accepted praise and handshakes, and probably a promotion. After the meeting, she locked herself in a bathroom stall and cried angry tears that ruined her makeup. This wasn't the first time. It was just the latest in 3 years of being overlooked, having her ideas stolen by mediocre men who saw her as a stepping stone. But something about today broke something in her. She stared at her reflection, at her 28-year-old face that suddenly looked exhausted, and made a decision. She was done. The rest of the day crawled by in a fog of rage. She smiled when needed, nodded when required, and spent every free moment drafting a text that grew angrier with each revision. By the time she got home, she was vibrating with the need to send it, to burn that bridge completely. Keisha came over with wine and takeout, took one look at Becky's face, and knew. They sat on the couch, and Becky told her everything, her voice shaking. Keisha listened, poured wine, and finally said, "So what are you going to do?" Becky showed her the draft text. Keisha's eyes widened. "Girl, if you send this, there's no going back." "Good," Becky said. She meant it, or thought she did, with wine warming her blood and anger fueling her courage. They spent an hour refining the message, making it sharper, more cutting. Keisha warned her one last time before Becky's thumb hit send, but the warning came too late. Now, sitting in her bedroom with a hangover and a job offer from a Korean billionaire, Becky realized the universe had a dark sense of humor. She called Keisha, not caring it was barely dawn. Keisha answered, voice thick with sleep. "This better be good. I didn't text Marcus. I texted a billionaire in Korea, and now he wants to hire me for $500,000. Long silence. Then, carefully, "Becky, are you still drunk?" "I wish. I typoed the number. Sent my rant to some CEO named Jin-Woo Park. He just offered me a job." She could hear Keisha sitting up. "Why would a billionaire hire you based on a drunk text?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. He sent a contract. $500,000 for 6 months of strategic corporate consulting." Keisha was quiet. "That sounds sketchy. Like trafficking sketchy. What does the contract actually say?" Becky scanned the PDF. Market analysis, competitive intelligence, corporate strategy implementation. And this line about gathering business intelligence through various means. "Corporate espionage," Keisha said flatly. "He wants you to be a spy." But Becky was already considering it. She pulled up her student loan account. $83,000. Her bank account showed $2,300. Rent due in 2 weeks. Then she saw it, an email from Marcus sent at midnight. Subject in caps, "Becky Washington, you're fired. Security will escort you out Monday." So she'd texted Marcus too? Or he'd heard about her behavior? Or he'd just been waiting for an excuse? Her career at Henderson Marketing was over. She had no job, crushing debt, and maybe 2 months before she'd have to move back to Alabama with her mother. "I'm going to call him back," Becky said. Keisha inhaled sharply. "Becky, please think about this. You don't know this man. This could be dangerous. Everything's dangerous, Kuish. Staying at Henderson was dangerous to my mental health. Being broke is dangerous. Never taking a chance is dangerous. I'm 28, and I'm tired of playing it safe and having nothing to show for it." Keisha sighed heavily. "Fine, but I'm staying on the line. If he says anything that sounds like trafficking, I'm calling the FBI." Becky pulled up Jin-Woo's number and dialed before she could change her mind. He answered on the first ring. "Ms. Washington, I assume you've read the contract." "I have questions," Becky said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Strategic consulting is vague. What exactly would I be doing?" "Direct." "I appreciate that." She heard voices in the background, traffic sounds. "You would be embedded in a competitor's organization to gather intelligence on their business practices, upcoming launches, strategic weaknesses. You observe, report, and analyze. That's corporate espionage. That's illegal." His laugh was short. "Only if you steal trade secrets or breach contracts. What I'm asking is observation and reporting. Many companies hire consultants for exactly this. The difference is I'm honest about my intentions." Becky paced her bedroom, mind spinning. "Why me? You could hire professional investigators with actual experience. Because professionals are predictable. They follow patterns, use known methods. You're an unknown. More importantly, you're angry. I read that anger in your message. Anger at being undervalued, overlooked, exploited. Properly directed, that's a tremendous asset. Your text wasn't just rage. It was analysis. You identified specific toxic patterns and power dynamics. That's exactly what I need." His words hit something deep, some part that had been screaming silently for 3 years. "And if I say no, then you say no. I delete your number, destroy the contract. We forget this conversation." "But Becky, may I be honest?" She almost laughed. Nothing about this was honest. "Sure, you're 28, significantly in debt, underemployed, and you just lost your job. Whether your resignation went to me or your boss, the bridge is burned. The question isn't whether you can afford this risk. It's whether you can afford not to take it." He was right, and she hated it. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Honey, are you okay? I had a feeling something was wrong." Her mother's intuition, always perfect timing. There's more you're not telling me, Becky said slowly. $500,000 is too much for corporate babysitting. What's really going on? Silence stretched long enough she thought he'd hung up. When Jin-Woo spoke again, his voice had changed, dropped into something harder. The company you'll investigate isn't just a competitor. They're involved in activities beyond standard business. Money laundering, connections to organized crime. I need someone inside who can confirm this and gather evidence. Her heart pounded. So, actual criminals. You want me to infiltrate a criminal organization. I want you to work at a company with a legitimate face but darker connections. You won't be in physical danger. You'll have a security team monitoring you constantly. The moment I have what I need, you're extracted. 6 months maximum, likely less. Why are you going after them? What's your stake? Another pause. They killed my brother. The words came out flat, emotionless, but she heard the truth beneath. This was revenge. 2 years ago, my younger brother Jin-Soo was investigating their operations as a journalist. He died in what was ruled an accident. A car crash on a mountain road outside Seoul. But Jin-Soo was the best driver I knew, the most careful person in my family. That wasn't an accident. Becky sat on her bed, the weight of his confession settling over her. This was real. The danger, the stakes, the pain in his voice. She should run, but she didn't. If I do this, I need guarantees. Real ones, in writing. Legal protection, security, and an exit strategy that doesn't end with me dead. You'll have all of that. My legal team will send an addendum with specific protocols, extraction procedures, legal protections. And Becky, one more thing. If you agree, you'll need to fly to Seoul next week for training. All expenses paid. Seoul. She'd never left the country, barely left Georgia, except for one spring break in Miami. The thought terrified and thrilled her. I need 24 hours to think. You have 12, Jin-Woo countered. The window is closing. My competitors move fast. So do I. The line went dead. Drop a comment below and tell me if you think Becky should take this job. Would you risk it for $500,000? Keisha's voice came through the other phone. Girl, his brother was murdered, and he wants to send you after those people. You understand how insane this is. Becky understood. It was insane and dangerous, and probably the worst decision possible. She was also broke, jobless, and exhausted for being small and scared. I'm doing it, she said quietly. Keisha was silent. Then I'm here every step. You check in daily. Miss one check-in. I'm calling every authority I can find. Deal. Deal. She spent the next hours researching Jin-Woo Park and Park Global Group. The company was massive, legitimate, with holdings across Asia expanding into American markets. Jin-Woo was an enigma, rarely photographed, never interviewed. What little existed painted him as brilliant, ruthless, untouchable. There were rumors in business forums and Korean news sites. Connections to chaebols, the family conglomerates controlling Korea's economy. Mentions of unconventional business methods. Nothing concrete, just enough smoke to suggest fire. She found articles about Jin-Woo Park's death. Tragic accident, the reports said. Talented journalist gone too soon. But in comment sections before they were deleted, people speculated. Jin-Soo had been investigating corporate corruption and organized crime. Then he died. The comments would appear and vanish, scrubbed by moderators. But Becky saw the pattern. Around noon, she called her mother. Not ready, but unable to avoid it. Baby, I've been waiting. What's going on? I quit my job, Mama. Got fired. It's complicated. Her mother sighed. What are you going to do? You have bills, loans. You can't quit without a plan. I have a plan. A consulting job. It pays really well. How well? Well enough to pay off my loans and have money left over. Silence. That sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? I have to travel. I'll be gone about 6 months, maybe less. Where? Seoul. Korea. The silence was deafening. Becky, I don't understand. What kind of job sends you to Korea for 6 months? Are you in trouble? Tears pricked her eyes. I'm safe, Mama. I promise. This is a good opportunity. A chance to do something that matters. Her mother was quiet. When you were little, remember what you used to be most afraid of. Becky thought back. Not really. What? Being ordinary. You'd have nightmares about growing up and disappearing, becoming invisible. You'd wake up crying, saying you didn't want to be nobody. I never understood then, but I do now. You're still afraid of being ordinary, aren't you? Tears spilled over. Every single day, Mama. Every day, I wonder if this is all there is. If I'll just work and struggle and die without mattering, without doing anything that makes a difference. Her mother's voice softened. Then maybe this job, whatever it really is, maybe it's what you need. Just promise you'll be careful. Promise you'll come home. Y promise, mama. She had 6 hours left on Jin-Woo's deadline. She spent them staring at her student loan balance, her empty bank account, Marcus's termination email. She thought about 3 years of being invisible, having her work stolen, her voice silenced, her potential wasted. She thought about her mother working 2 jobs to help pay for college, sacrificing everything so Becky could have opportunities she never had. At 5 hours before the deadline, Becky called Jin-Woo back. He answered immediately. Ms. Washington, have you made your decision? I have conditions. I want the contract reviewed by my own lawyer. All security arrangements in writing with specific protocols. A panic button that extracts me immediately if things go wrong. And the exact name of the company I'm infiltrating. Done, done, done. And the company is Zenith Luxury Imports. Based in Atlanta, they import high-end goods from Asia, primarily Korea and Japan. On the surface, completely legitimate. They sponsor charity events, beautiful office in Buckhead. Look as clean as any company in the city. Underneath, they're laundering money for criminal organizations, including Korean organized crime operating in the American Southeast. Becky's stomach flipped. She knew Zenith. She'd seen their ads, their charity gala invitations. They looked untouchable. How do I get hired? They must do background checks. You'll be recommended by someone they trust. I've established a cover identity. Becky Chun, half Chinese, raised in California, background in supply chain management. We'll spend your time in Seoul perfecting your story, teaching you enough Mandarin and Korean business customs to be convincing. You planned all this before I agreed. I planned for multiple contingencies. It's how I stay alive. Does that bother you? It should have. But instead, she felt something like respect. When do I leave? Saturday. 5 days. Your ticket will be in your email within the hour, along with updated contracts and your new identity documents. Bring nothing that ties you to Becky Washington. That person is taking a sabbatical from existence. The line went dead. Her email pinged. First-class ticket to Seoul via San Francisco. PDF labeled Becky Chun identity package with passport, driver's license, employment history, even a LinkedIn profile that looked years old. A credit card in Becky Chin's name with a $50,000 limit. Emergency contact, Jin-Woo Park, direct line. It was real. All of it. The next 5 days blurred. Becky sublet her apartment to a friend's cousin, put furniture in storage, crafted vague social media posts about taking time to find herself. She ignored Marcus's furious calls. Let him think she'd had a breakdown. She met with a lawyer Keisha recommended who reviewed the contract with wide eyes and warnings, but confirmed it was legally sound, if unusual. She spent hours memorizing Becky Chin's fabricated life. Born in Sacramento, raised in the Bay Area, graduated UC Davis with supply chain management degree. Previous employment at companies that existed only on paper but would verify her history. She practiced until she could recite it without hesitation, until Becky Chun felt almost real. Thursday night, Keisha came over with takeout. They sat on the couch, surrounded by boxes, talking about everything except what was really happening. Finally, Keisha set down her fork, tears in her eyes. I'm scared for you. Terrified something will happen, and I'll never see you again. Becky grabbed her hand. I'm scared too. But Kuish, I can't keep living small and safe and invisible. Maybe this is crazy, but at least it's my choice. At least I'm choosing something instead of letting life happen to me. Keisha squeezed back. You call me every single day. I don't care what time it is in Korea. Every day, or I'm calling the FBI, CIA, every news station. Every day, Becky promised. Saturday morning came with sunshine and clear skies. Keisha drove her to the airport, neither saying much. At departures, Keisha pulled her into a fierce hug. 6 months. You come back to me in 6 months. 6 months, Becky whispered, hoping it was a promise she could keep. Security as Becky Chun, her real passport locked in a bank's safety deposit box. The first-class seat was more comfortable than her couch. Champagne she didn't drink, food she couldn't eat. Becky stared out the window as America disappeared beneath clouds, wondering if she was flying toward her future or her grave. 14 hours of turbulence and racing thoughts. She tried sleeping, but kept jolting awake, heart pounding. What if this was a setup? What if Jin-Woo was lying? What if she disappeared, just another missing person? But it was too late. The plane was over the Pacific, and there was no turning back. Seoul appeared through clouds at dawn, a sprawling metropolis of glass and neon, stretching forever. The plane descended and Becky's stomach dropped with it. She cleared customs as Becky Chun, fake passport passing without a glance. In arrivals, a young man in a black suit held a sign with her new name. He had the rigid posture of military training. Minuskop Tien, I'm Min-yoon. I'll be your security liaison. Mr. Park is waiting. The car was a black Mercedes with tinted windows. Min-jun opened the door, and there was Jin-Woo Park, more imposing in person than photos suggested. His presence filled the car despite average height. Black suit, no tie, dark hairstyle back. When his eyes met hers, Becky felt examined, measured, evaluated. Becky Washington, he said. Or should I call you Becky Chin now? Just Becky. I'll get confused enough as it is. A slight smile touched his lips, the first real expression she'd seen. Fair enough. Welcome to Seoul. We have considerable work ahead. The car pulled into traffic, and Becky watched the city slide past. Everything foreign and overwhelming. Signs in Korean she couldn't read. Crowds moving with purpose. A whole world that existed without her. When does training start? Tomorrow morning at 5:30. Tonight you rest and adjust. Min-jun will take you to your apartment. It's secure, fully furnished, monitored for your safety. Becky wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but jet lag hit like a hammer. After training? How long before Atlanta? Jin-Woo's expression became unreadable. 4 weeks intensive preparation. Then you return and begin infiltration. Application, interview, hopefully employment within 2 months. That gives approximately 4 months inside Zenith to find what we need. What exactly are we looking for? Evidence of money laundering operations, connections to organized crime, anything that build a legal case. I want justice for Jin-soo, but I want it permanent. That means airtight evidence. His voice hardened on his brother's name. The car stopped at a high-rise in Gangnam. Min-jun collected her luggage and led her to a 20th-floor apartment bigger and nicer than anywhere she'd lived. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Jin-woo stood in the doorway. Get some sleep. Tomorrow your real education begins. And Becky, one more thing. He paused, dark eyes intense. In 6 months, this will be over. You'll have your money and freedom. But you'll also have knowledge that makes you dangerous to powerful people. I can offer protection, relocation, new identity if needed. But I can't offer you the ability to unknow what you'll learn. Make sure you understand that. Then he was gone and Becky was alone in this expensive apartment in a foreign country. Her old life, 9,000 miles away. She stood at the window, looking at Seoul's glittering skyline, wondering which version of herself will be standing here 6 months from now. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Welcome to Seoul, Becky Chun. Tomorrow you become someone new. Unsigned, but she knew it was Jin-woo. She collapsed into bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. Her mind circled back to that drunk text, the 2-digit typo that changed everything. Her whole life had pivoted on something so small. She thought about Marcus and Henderson Marketing and who she'd been a week ago, small and angry and trapped. That Becky felt like a stranger now. Sleep came in fragments, punctuated by dreams of falling. The alarm screamed at 5 a.m. Becky dragged herself up, dressed in the workout clothes laid out on a chair she hadn't noticed last night, and waited. At 5:30 shop, Min-yoon knocks. With him stood a woman Becky hadn't met, tall and lean with short dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. This is Ji-yeon. She'll lead your training. Ji-yeon looked Becky up and down with an expression that suggested she wasn't impressed. Let's go. We're behind schedule already. They took her to a building that looked like an office complex, but housed something else entirely. The floors required key cards and fingerprint scans. Inside was a training facility that would make any intelligence agency jealous. For the next 4 weeks, this is your life, Ji-yeon said, her English accented but clear. Combat training, surveillance detection, social engineering, language basics, identity reinforcement. You'll learn to defend yourself, spot a tail, lie convincingly, and survive if everything goes wrong. Questions? Becky had 100, but one rose to the top. Why 4 weeks? That seems fast. Ji-yeon's smile was sharp. Because we don't have more time. Zenith's hiring cycle moves fast, and we need you inside before their current logistics coordinator gets promoted. For weeks to make you ready, or you're not ready at all. Stop wasting time talking. The training was brutal. Becky had considered herself fit, but Ji-yeon's regimen destroyed that assumption. Hand-to-hand combat drills until her muscles screamed. She got thrown, pinned, knocked down over and over. Surveillance exercises in crowded Seoul streets where she had to spot the tail. Language lessons with a tutor who showed no patience for mistakes. Basic Korean phrases, enough Mandarin to maintain her half-Chinese cover. Business etiquette for both cultures. She memorized Becky Chin's history until it became second nature. Her fake childhood in Sacramento, her made-up college years, her invented work history. She practiced answering questions about her life until she could do it without hesitation, until the lies felt like truth. By the end of week 1, Becky's body was a map of bruises. She collapsed in a bed each night, too exhausted to think. But she was changing. She noticed things she'd never paid attention to before. The way people moved, who watched her, and who didn't, the exits in every room. She was becoming sharper, harder, more aware. Week 2 started with Ji-Yun knocking her on her ass for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Becky lay on the mat, sweat stinging her eyes, every muscle trembling. Jin-Woo stood watching from the doorway, expression unreadable. Again, he said. Becky looked up at him. I can't. I'm done. Then you die, Jin-Woo said flatly. In the real world, your opponent doesn't care that you're tired. Get up. Something in his tone, or maybe in her own stubborn pride, made Becky push to her feet. This time when Ji-Yun came at her, Becky remembered the defensive move they drilled 100 times. She sidestepped, used Ji-Yun's momentum against her, and actually landed a hit. Not much, just a glancing blow to Ji-Yun's shoulder, but it was something. Ji-Yun grinned, a rare expression. Better. Again. Week 3 brought Seoul Street exercises where Becky had to lose a tail in crowded markets, pick up dead drops in subway stations, communicate through coded messages. She failed most of them at first, but slowly she improved. She started thinking 3 moves ahead, anticipating patterns, trusting her instincts. The version of herself that had existed at Henderson Marketing felt like someone from another lifetime. One evening after particularly grueling training, Jin-Woo appeared at the facility. Come with me. He drove her to a restaurant overlooking the Han River, all glass walls and ambient lighting. It was the first time they'd been alone since the airport. They sat by the window, the city glittering below. You've done well, he said as tea was poured. Ji-Yun says you're ahead of schedule. That's high praise from her. I don't feel ahead of anything. I feel terrified. Jin-Woo's expression softened slightly. Good. Confident people make mistakes. Terrified people stay alert. Use your fear. Becky studied him across the table, this man who turned her life upside down with a wrong number. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I may not answer. Why are you really doing this? You said it's about your brother, but you could hire professional investigators, intelligence agencies. Why involve someone like me? Why make it this personal? Jin-Woo was quiet for a long moment, watching the river flow below. Because professional investigators work within systems, within rules. The people who killed Jin-Soo own the systems, write the rules. I need someone outside all of that. Someone who has nothing to lose and everything to gain. Someone angry enough to take the risk and smart enough to survive it. He paused, and perhaps because sending someone with everything to lose would weigh too heavily on my conscience. If I die, if they figure out what I am and kill me like they killed your brother, does that bother you at all? His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. Yes, it would bother me greatly, but I would still have done it because the alternative is letting them win. That's not acceptable. There was pain in his voice, kept locked down tight. Becky saw it, though, recognized it because she'd carried her own pain for so long. Tell me about Jin-Soo, she said softly. Jin-Woo's jaw tightened. He was the good one in our family. The one who believed in doing things the right way, through law and journalism and truth. He thought exposure and accountability would bring justice. They killed him for that belief. So now I'm doing it the other way. The way our family has always done things when the law fails us. Through power, through information, through fear. You loved him. It wasn't a question. More than anything, he was my younger brother. I was supposed to protect him. Jin-Woo's hand rested on the table between them. For a moment, Becky almost reached for it, but she pulled back. This was business. It had to stay business. But something passed between them in that moment, some understanding of shared pain and purpose. I won't let you down, Becky said. I'll find what you need to bring them down. Jin-Woo's eyes held hers. I know you will. I chose well. The way he said it made her chest tighten. The drive back was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Something had shifted between them. Week 4 was final preparations. Mock interviews where Ji-Yun played a suspicious HR manager. Practice using the panic button disguised as a bracelet charm Jin-Woo gave her. Press this, and we extract you within 20 minutes, anywhere in Atlanta, he said, fastening it around her wrist. His fingers brushed her skin and lingered a moment too long. Their eyes met, and Becky's breath caught. Then the moment passed, and he stepped back, professional distance restored. The last day of training, Ji-Yeon put her through every drill one final time. Combat, surveillance, interrogation resistance, cover story maintenance. Becky passed everything. You're ready, Ji-Yeon said, and it sounded like the highest compliment she could give. Stay alert, trust no one inside Zenith, and remember everything I taught you. That night, Jin-Woo took her to the airport himself. When you land in Atlanta, you're Becky Chun. Becky Washington doesn't exist for the next 4 months. Can you do that? I can do that. He looked at her for a long moment. Be careful, please. The police caught her off guard. She'd never heard him say it before. I will. I promise. For a moment, she thought he might say something else, might close the distance between them. But he didn't. He simply nodded and watched her walk through security, and she felt his eyes on her until she turned the corner and disappeared from view. The flight back to Atlanta felt different than the one leaving. Becky wasn't the same person who'd left 5 weeks ago. She'd been reshaped, refined, turned into something harder and sharper. When she landed, she was Becky Chun completely. Her apartment was in a different part of the city. Her car was different, even her coffee order was different. Everything about Becky Washington had been erased. Within 2 days, she'd applied to Zenith Luxury Imports. Within a week, she had an interview. The office was exactly as Jin-Woo described, all glass and chrome and expensive art. Her interviewer was David Cho, second-generation Korean-American, friendly smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Your background is impressive, he said, reviewing her fabricated resume. Supply chain management, experience with Asian imports, Mandarin fluency. You're exactly what we're looking for. Becky smiled, the expression easy and practiced. My mother insisted we maintain our cultural connections. I'm grateful for that now. It was a lie wrapped in truth the way Ji-Yeon had taught her. David asked standard questions, and Becky answered perfectly, every detail of her fake life flowing naturally. She got the job offer 2 days later. Start date in 1 week. She texted Jin-Woo from the burner phone he'd given her. I'm in. His response came immediately. Well done. Remember, Min-Jun is local. Use the emergency contact only if absolutely necessary. Trust no one inside. Her first day at Zenith was deliberately unremarkable. She met her team, learned the systems, processed shipping manifests, and customs documents. She was polite, efficient, asked smart questions, but not too many. She made friends slowly, carefully. Sarah in accounting, who loved gossip. Carlos the warehouse manager, who knew everyone's business. She learned the office rhythm, who had affairs, who had power, who was trusted. For the first 3 weeks, she was just Becky Chun, the new logistics coordinator who was good at her job and easy to like. Week 4, she started noticing things. Shipments that didn't match inventory. Manifests with minor discrepancies that might mean nothing or might mean everything. She photographed documents with the camera glasses Jin-Woo had given her, sent encrypted files to a secure server. Week 5, she stayed late, catching up on work. The office empty. She accessed files she shouldn't have access to. Ghost companies in the shipping records. Payments that didn't align with legitimate business. Week 6, Carlos took a call in Spanish, not knowing she understood. He mentioned the shipment from Busan, talked about containers that weren't on any official manifest. She pretended not to hear, but her heart raced. This was bigger than money laundering. They were moving something else. Drugs, maybe. Or worse. Week 7, she volunteered for weekend inventory duty. In the warehouse, she found shipping containers with numbers that didn't exist in the system. She photographed everything, her hands shaking. Hidden manifests showed the truth. Zenith wasn't just laundering money. They were trafficking, moving contraband disguised as luxury goods. She uploaded the evidence and texted Min-Jun. We have a problem. This goes deeper than we thought. Week 8, David Cho started watching her more closely. He appeared at her desk more often, asked casual questions that felt like interrogation. How are you settling in, Becky? Great. Everyone's been so welcoming. His smile didn't reach his eyes. That's wonderful. We do thorough background checks, you know? Can't be too careful in this business. Her blood ran cold, but she kept smiling. Of course. Security is important. That night, she called Jin-Woo on the secure line. I think they're suspicious. His voice was tight with concern. What happened? She told him about David's questions, the increased scrutiny. I need 3 more days. There's a client meeting Friday. If I can access David's computer while he's presenting, I can get their complete client list. That's everything you need. It's too dangerous. We extract you now. 3 days, Jin-Woo. We're so close. 3 days, and you have everything to destroy them. Silence. Then, 3 days. But the moment something feels wrong, you press that button. Promise me. I promise. She could hear something in his voice, something beyond professional concern. Becky, be careful. Please. I will. She wanted to say more, wanted to tell him that somewhere between Seoul and Atlanta, between training and this mission, he'd become more than just her employer. But this wasn't the time. Friday came. The client meeting started at 10. Becky volunteered to hold down the office while everyone attended. David hesitated. You sure you don't want to sit in? It's good experience. I've got a shipment emergency to handle. Rain check. He studied her face for a long moment. Sure. We'll be in conference room A if you need anything. The moment they left, Becky moved. David's office, his computer. The password Min-Jun had cracked worked. She was in. Files downloaded to her USB drive. Client lists, payment records, trafficking routes. Everything. Then the office door opened. David stood there, face cold. I had a feeling, he said. Something about you never quite added up, Becky. Or should I say, whoever you really are. Becky's hand moved to the bracelet. I don't know what you're talking about. The shipment emergency was handled yesterday. I checked. So what are you really doing at my computer? She pressed the panic button. 20 minutes. She had to survive 20 minutes. I was checking my email. David moved closer. She saw something in his hand. Not a gun. A syringe. We have questions for you. You'll answer them one way or another. Training kicked in. When he lunged, she sidestepped exactly like Ji-Yun taught her. Used his momentum, threw him off balance. He crashed into his desk. She ran. Through the office, down the stairs. Carlos appeared, blocking her path. They fought, and this time Becky didn't hold back. Every drill, every bruise from training paid off. She landed a solid hit to his throat, and he went down gasping. The USB drive clutched in her hand. She burst through the loading dock door. Min-Jun's car screeched up. Get in. She dove into the back seat. Another car appeared behind them. Zenith's people. The chase through Atlanta was chaos. Gunshots. Min-Jun driving like a professional, which he was. They lost the tail on the highway, took side streets to his safe house. Jin-Woo was already there, pacing. When Becky stumbled in, he grabbed her shoulders. Are you hurt? I'm Fine. I got it. Everything. She held up the USB drive. His hands were still on her shoulders. You could have died, but I didn't. They were standing very close now. Jin-Woo. He pulled her into his arms, the embrace fierce and desperate. When Min-Jun said they'd made you, I thought he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Becky pulled back just enough to see his face. I'm okay. We did it. If you're still watching, hit that like button and subscribe. This ending is going to be worth it. Within 48 hours, the FBI raided Zenith. David Joazet. Carlos arrested. The entire network collapsed like dominoes. News reports showed agents carrying boxes of evidence from the gleaming Buckhead office. Major international trafficking ring dismantled, the anchors said. Jin-Woo watched the news in the safe house. Something like peace settling over his features. Jin-Soo, this is for you, he said quietly. Becky's phone showed a new deposit. $500,000. Her student loans paid in full. Her mother's mortgage paid off. Money left over for whatever future she wanted. Jin-Woo turned to her. The contract is complete. You're free to go back to your life, to be Becky Washington again. He paused, and she saw vulnerability in his eyes she'd never seen before. Or you could stay, work for me permanently. Not infiltration, strategy, intelligence analysis, building cases against people like Zenith. You're exceptional at this. Becky thought about Henderson marketing, about Marcus stealing her work, about being invisible and powerless. She thought about her mother, saying she was always afraid of being ordinary. She looked at Jin-Woo, this man who'd seen her potential in a drunk text, who'd bet $500,000 on her anger and intelligence, who'd looked terrified when she was in danger. What would the job really be, she asked. Helping me take down corruption. Finding the people who think they're untouchable and proving them wrong. Making a real difference. He stepped closer. And perhaps, if you're interested, seeing where this goes. He gestured between them. Because somewhere between that first phone call and now, this stopped being just business for me. Becky's heart raced. When did you know? The night at the Han River. When you asked if your death would bother me, and I realized it would destroy me. You. When you fastened this bracelet on my wrist, and your hand lingered. He smiled, really smiled, for the first time since she'd met him. So what do you say? Stay in Seoul? Work with me. See if we're as good together as I think we might be. Becky thought about the life she could return to. Small apartment, job hunt, safety, ordinary. And she thought about the life she could choose. Seoul, purpose, challenge him. I'll stay, but I pick the targets. And I want an equal partnership, not just employee and boss. Done. He closed the distance between them, cupped her face in his hands. Becky Washington, you drunk texted your way into my life and turned everything upside down. Best typo I ever made, she whispered. Then he kissed her, and it felt like coming home and launching into space all at once. 6 months later, Becky stood in her office at Park Global Group's Seoul headquarters, looking out at the city that had become hers. Student loans paid. Mother's house paid off. A career that mattered, taking down corruption across Asia. And Jin-Woo, her partner in every sense of the word. Her phone rang. Keisha's face appeared on video call. Girl, you're glowing. So looks good on you. It really does. Her mother called next. Baby, I'm so proud of you. Not because of the money or the fancy job. Because you stopped being afraid of being ordinary. Thanks, Mama. I love you. Jin-Woo appeared in her doorway with coffee and new case file. He set both on her desk, dropped a kiss on her temple with the casual affection of someone who did it every day now. Ready for the next one? She looked at the file, then at him, then out at Seoul. Always. Thanks for watching this story. If you loved it, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories. Comment below what you thought of Becky's journey. See you in the next one.